Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Sorry, I was distracted by something that popped up on my screen. Good morning, Tom. How are you? We are right on time, working and perking. Love it.
I know that matters to you, so that's important.
I'm honored that you care as much as you do. I really am. So how are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Up and going. Good day, good week. All good.
You planning to work through the whole week, or are you slowing it down each day?
Probably slowing it a little bit each day. I mean, I plan to work most of the day today, most of the day tomorrow. I'll work in the morning, probably, well, definitely on Thursday, and I'll at least work until about 8:26, maybe 8:30 on Friday.
Yeah, we have to talk about Thursday because I'm actually doing some work. I'm going to help take some food and gifts to some elderly people in a county outside of the area early on Thursday morning. Yeah, there's a group called Santa Claus Anonymous in Baltimore, and I'm sure it's around the country. And they are serving 1,000 families this year who would not have food for the holidays or gifts. So really, really neat work. So I'm excited to do that. That's it's funny in these times when we can get very selfish. It's nice to think about other people and what matters to them, which is what our topic is today, oddly enough. So who knew? We've been talking this week about what matters, and that wasn't a calculation that we threw together lightly. We choose these topics carefully, and what matters is really important because, like we discovered yesterday, it matters to me that we start at 8 o'clock. That doesn't mean it matters to everyone, but Tom is being very respectful of me this morning. He said, he didn't even say it's 8 o'clock. He just said, "You ready to go?" And boom, we were rocking and rolling. And I think that says to me how much you value me in your life, that you would make a shift in what you think and what you believe to accommodate something that I shared that was important to me. And I don't know that we do that as much as we can. And the disconnect is not that we don't know, the disconnect is not that we can't, it's that we don't know what that thing is or things that matter because we don't ask or we don't get into that discussion. What are your thoughts, Tom?
No, I would 100% agree. I think the challenge is that, whether it's with someone we love, we know, we like, we work with, who's our client, we often tend to assume what matters most to them. And I think that that's where we get ourselves in trouble instead of rather asking, because I think that's hopefully they will share with us what is not only real, but what matters the most, and how do they prioritize of all those things that they could do. That's what matters. I think so often in organizations, we think that what matters most, they think about what matters most to the company. And is that important? Absolutely. Company doesn't exist if it's not what matters most. And that doesn't mean that every moment of every day for your employees or for your audience, that what matters is what matters for your company. It's what matters for them. And if we don't ask, we assume that everybody's there. Oh, we're all just there to make sure the company works well, does great. We're all just here a part of this team because we're all shooting for the same goal. Yes, and there are other things that matter to people. And I think that's where we sometimes struggle, is we start to treat everyone the same, whether it's our staff or our customers, assuming that, well, this is what everybody thinks is right. This is what everybody thinks is real. And this is how they prioritize what matters. So you're right. If we don't start asking those questions, we don't start trying to figure out what matters most, we are likely going to miss the mark. And it's one of those things that, if it happens once, okay, we missed the mark once. If we were late on the show once, it wouldn't be that big a deal. We would understand it was technical issues or whatever. And not taking that 8 o'clock as seriously as we could matters. Mattered to you, matters to probably some of our listeners. And so that's important for us to consider. It doesn't mean it's right for us. It just means we have to consider it and figure out how that matters. And I think that's where it is where those two things meet. What matters most for me and what matters most for our audience, and how do we find ways for them to come together?
And we could do this program perfectly fine without ever finding out what matters to the people we serve. Would it be as good? Would it be as robust? Probably not. And what I think of is how many times when I'm informed by the people around me that I'm working with about things that they deem important, how that helps me to better tailor what I'm doing to them and their needs. And also, frankly, it makes me better at what I do, because now I've got more, I'll use your words, knowledge, experience, and perspective to layer on to what I already have as my own knowledge, experience, and perspective. And so when we can start to build that, that's why I think you see people who are older looking wiser. It's not that they're any smarter. It's just that they have more experience to draw on, more of a perspective. And they've been in situations where they can draw on it and say, oh, in this last situation, you're probably now, whenever you do something like this Facebook Live or something with someone, you're going to be like, hey, when we say 8 o'clock, do you mean 8 o'clock or do you mean like in the ballpark? Not because, but just because now you have that information. It's like, if this affected Bob, maybe it affects other people. And you may find that someone else goes, who cares? I don't care if it's 8:20, Tom, whatever it is. That doesn't make my way right or their way wrong. It just means that different people have different perspectives on what matters to them. And we can't be all knowing. That's the thing I think I have to remind myself about. I can't know what's important to you right now, Tom. It may be that I can guess because we've had a lot of time working together, but you throw curveballs on me. You do it, you do it a fair number of times, not because you're trying to throw me curveballs, but because I've made an assumption based on my knowledge and experience and perspective that's faulty because it doesn't take into account that you're an individual.
Yeah, it's just real. It's what's real for you, right? That's what you know. And I think that's, it's funny, there's that saying that the customer is always right. And somebody shared that with me the other day, and I'm like, no, I don't necessarily agree with that. Customer, it's real for what the customer is. Doesn't mean it's right. Just means that that's where they're at. And maybe they don't have enough knowledge and experience or perspective to be able to understand why things are the way they are. I have to take that into account as the business owner or as the employee who's dealing with this customer who's unsatisfied for some reason, and figure out, okay, what do I also know is real about what's going on in the organization? Someone can call and say like, well, you didn't tell me this. You can say, okay, I didn't tell you that, but it's written in the contract. If you look down at line 7,
right,
end of the line, it'll say that this is what it is. And that's just what's real. It's what it is, And I think that's, you mentioned before, it helps to have that information because it's going to influence what's real for us. It may or may not change it. It's just going to have an influence on it. It was like when we first came up with this whole equation, and Tim, one of our listeners, said, well, you have to have, now I forgot the word he said.
Empathy.
Empathy, right. Empathy has to be a part of it.
That's how quick it's forgotten, Tom. Can't wait till Tim weighs in on that one.
Yeah, I know.
Just poked the bear.
And what was great about that was it made us pause and say, is this worthwhile? And we brought him on the next day to have that discussion. And I considered it. And I still believe that what is real for me is that empathy is a part of what's real and what we then put back out based on knowledge, experience, and perspective. And so I think it also can solidify your feelings about what is real for you.
And I think this is where we have to go back to what you were saying a couple times last week, which is what's real for you and what's real for me doesn't make one of us right and the other person wrong. And I think so often we as leaders, as business owners, as high-level employees think that we're the only ones who know the answer. And I think the more I realize I don't know the answers, the more answers I find. And I know that sounds really silly, but as I get older, I'm like, I really don't know the answer to that question. I might have a theory. My theory is X. I'm proven wrong many, 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 many times. But when it turns out that what I theorized was wrong, I don't take it as much as right and wrong. I go much more for, okay, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use this to build something better going forward? And those of you who have been with us on this program for more than about 2 weeks can see that we are constantly building it. It has gone through so many iterations, probably more than Tom and I could even admit. Not like we consciously go on a Monday morning, hey, let's change it and do this today or that. We're just finding our way. And when we get a reaction that's favorable, we do more of that. And that's what we do in business. We have to have an idea of what we want to do, what the mission is. But once we have that mission, how you get there is a zigzaggy path that takes a lot of different perspectives. I got my P words. Tom, I've been working on this book for the last 24 hours. I am like mired in words. Look, can you see this page?
Yes.
This is what every page, 76 pages, looks like, and I'm trying to make sense of it. So if I'm having trouble with words, it's okay.
It's real.
It's real.
Where you are at. And I think that's right and wrong is so definite or definitive, however you want to say. And typically it's in a moment, right? Because it's a snapshot. All right. What do we know at the moment?
It's also inclusive and exclusive.
Right.
You're
Correct.
either on one side or you're on the other. There's no middle ground. There's no dialogue. There's no discussion.
Yeah. And I think many times, you think about it. Like I asked you a question yesterday about a computer. I was having a question. I had this issue that I was trying to figure out. And all you could offer me was what your knowledge, experience, and perspective, what was real for you, could provide. Doesn't mean it was right or wrong. It was just what you knew. It was what was real for you. And and it was where I was at. So I gained some information, I gained some knowledge, and that helped change the challenges that I was currently facing. So what used to be real for me changed in a conversation. And I think that's, as you talked about this show, that's what happened with this show. We've gone along through it and we've gotten feedback about this is when the show seems to be at its best. This is when it struggles. Okay. And now we start to that influences what we decide to do. Doesn't mean we take all of those suggestions or thoughts and do them. They're just incorporated into where we're going. And I think if people think about that, it's just like your lives. Every day you take on new knowledge, experience, and perspective. And so it's, if you could ever go back and look at the path of your life, it's definitely, hard to believe it's a straight line. It meanders all over the place as we are trying to find our way. Same with your business. If you take a look at where your business was at, well, especially this year, 10 months ago, 12 months ago, 2 years ago, you're looking, oh, okay, it's what it is. I look at my own and I started out, okay, I'm going to help people in the nonprofit world raise more money. All right. Then it became strategic planning, coaching. What I'm doing in coaching also is similar to what small business owners and leaders are dealing with. I can expand to that. I never thought about a podcast or whatever this is, a Facebook Live. Now that's incorporated into it. So we kind of weave our way based on what we gain.
And those last two you mentioned, Tom, didn't come from your thoughts. They were from other people, right?
Right. It was new perspective that I gained from others or new knowledge. I had one of my coaches challenge me, like, well, why can't you do that? I don't know.
And I think that's something to take away from this today is, where is that opportunity to find out what matters to other people and layer that into what we're doing? Because the best solutions to people's problems, the best companies, the most successful ones are the ones that are constantly listening to the people they're trying to serve and responding and reacting. You see businesses that, the mortgage companies delayed payment on mortgages for a couple of months if you asked for it when the pandemic started, because they realized those people weren't going to be able to pay. And if those people didn't pay and they just, abandoned their house, that doesn't help the mortgage company. So they took in the information, evaluated it, came up with a solution that's worked pretty well. And that's what we're all constantly doing. And the other thing I wanted to throw in, Tom, is when we know what matters to other people, often what matters to other people, especially the people we're talking to as potential clients or customers, it may not matter to them. If the plumber sent me a circular yesterday saying $60 off plumbing services right now, I don't need plumbing services. But you can be darn sure tomorrow, if my pipes burst, I'm calling them. And at that point, that $60 doesn't really matter. When water's cascading down from my second floor to my first floor in my basement, $60 will not decide my decision. So those are completely different situations. And the plumber's not wrong to be sending me the circular, nor is he wrong to charge me whatever he would charge me on a holiday if he charges me a holiday. He knows the situation. And I think for all of us, we have to really start thinking about that alignment, because I hear people say all the time, and sometimes I say it in my head, it's like, this person needs what I have. Well, they may need it in my view, but not in their own view. And until they see the value to them, it doesn't really matter what I think.
Correct. It's interesting, I've seen a number of times, if you're in any Facebook groups, people are always asking questions. And so because I'm in a lot of nonprofits, one of them is, hey, can somebody help me with language for a solicitation, end of the year solicitation? And I almost always want to write back and say, or can they share it? Not even ask for, they just, can you share what you've used? And I want to say to them, they don't have the same donors. They don't have the same prospect base. They don't have the same mission, programs. It's not the same person. They don't have, so until you understand your own audience's perspective, it doesn't matter what anybody else's audience is, even if it's in the same world. One plumber who works in New York City is going to be very different than somebody who's out in Dubuque, Idaho, or Iowa, sorry. Because it's rural, city, how to get around, how much area you cover, all of those things that are different. So even though you're in the same industry, there might still be different, your audiences have different things, and what matters is going to be different.
Tom, I want to put some comments up. I discovered yesterday people really like these comments, so I want to put them up here. John says he wants to play golf. I'm off now, not sure how long. So Tom, if you can get out and play some golf with John today, he'd love to play. Vanessa says, good morning. Carrie says, oh, Bob, that is wonderful. I think it's probably about the work I'll be doing on Christmas Eve. Carrie says, good morning, Tom and Bob. Hi. Hey, Carrie. Good to see you again. John, not sure what nog today is. I'm going to guess not today. He never went golfing yesterday, so we didn't listen to his suggestion because he was pushing golf yesterday. Kim says, right and wrong is like black and white, but reality is that the world is there. In the world, there are many shades between black and white that need to be considered. Sorry, I was struggling with this word on my mouth. What's that?
You got to get better at reading these comments. You struggle with the comments.
All right, I'll work on that, Tom. I didn't realize that was important. No comment. And Peter says, how does one determine what matters most? Where is the line? Where is the line in the sand? What do you do with that when you know? Is what matters always an opportunity to do business? Wow. We just hit some deep water, as always with Peter. I think he
Well,
raises some great issues. Let's break it down one by one. How
yeah,
does one determine what matters most?
we're
So
going to
what
talk
do you
about
think,
that
Tom?
later in the week. We're going to take
Okay.
that later in the week. He's
Okay.
foreshadowing what's to come.
Where is the line in the sand?
The line in the sand for what matters most is that's the line in the sand between what matters most for us and what matters most for them. That's a really good question.
Well, I think one of the things is what matters most to me is that I'm doing the things that I'm comfortable with within my mission. That's what the line in the sand is. So if someone says to me, Bob, I want you to help me build a business that's going to do illegal work, I refuse to go there. That's just the line in the sand. Now, someone else might. I don't care. That's not my problem. I know that line. I'm not crossing that line. If someone wants me to do something that's unethical, I'm not going to do that. I know plenty of people that will, and that's their choice. And ethics is a personal choice. But what matters to me is I can go to bed at night comfortable that the person I am doesn't have to get up in the next morning and wonder if, the federal agents are going to come or my tax returns are going to be messed up. And I'm not judging anyone. I just know what the line is for me.
Yeah, well, I think here's the thing is that's the key piece is the question is almost asking us to say, where is the line? And the line is going to change based on every situation and every interaction. Because what's real for the audience and what's real for us is changing all the time. So if I'm dealing with a client who's upset and I feel bad because I know that they're standing there with their family and they're trying to go on a vacation and they can't get where they're going to get. Yeah, I know what the company says I should do. And I also know what's real in the moment. Now, I could also have someone else come up and just be a complete jerk, who just is yelling and screaming and doing whatever because some minor little thing that in actuality was they didn't maybe follow all the guidelines. What's real is going to change. And so I think that's the challenge in all of this is that one, we're not inside the other person's head, our audience's head. So we can't always know exactly where they're at. And with every passing day, what's real for us changes. So that line in the sand is kind of like it's there based on whoever it is I'm meeting, whenever I'm meeting them, and trying to figure out now what's real between the two of us. I don't know if that helps Peter or not, but that's.
And we'll talk about this more over the course of the week. And my new favorite person in the whole world, Tom, right here, Kim. LOL, I mistyped. It wasn't his reading. And I was trying not to say that because I know people are typing and it's hard to do that when you're paying attention and you're on your phone or you're doing things. So I didn't want to say that it was a typo or anything like that. But I appreciate that, Kim. Thank you. And please keep commenting, whether I butcher them or not. We really appreciate the feedback. It really makes these programs much more interesting for everyone. John says, I will work with the drug lords, so that's good to know. And he also says they will beat Bob up and make him teach them soft skills while they're beating him up. I think he means the drug lords. So, by the way, John still wants to play golf today, Tom.
All right.
We forgive for punctuation. Yes, we do, John. I believe he's friends with Kim. So, folks, this is the part of the program that I think is one of the most powerful to me personally. It forces me to think. It forces me to get out of my little box of Bob and into the big world. And that's our today's antidote. That one thing that we can do today that's going to change things, that's going to move the ball slightly forward towards what we're trying to achieve. Tom, do you have one for today?
Yeah, I would go to it's important to know what matters to our audience critically. So we have to ask. And that doesn't mean they're right. It just means that's what's real for them.
Or wrong.
Correct. It's just real. It's just where they are at that moment, given all the knowledge, experience, perspective that they have had. this is what right now is real for them. Doesn't mean that they're right. So it's great to ask, great to find out, and it's probably going to influence what's real for us. Doesn't mean it's right.
Did I ever tell you the story about when I was leading a focus group for a company I worked for because the person who was supposed to lead it got sick and they asked someone to do it? And I was leading this focus group on a project that I had led, a marketing campaign. So we've got 12 people in our sample audience that have come into this room, and I'm asking them questions. And I'm like, well, what do you think about the heading? And they're like, oh, it's horrible, it's horrible, it's horrible. I mean, they are just skewering it. It's being beaten up, and I can't say anything. And it's all my work. It's all, I put it in front of the company. The company has hired this focus group and all this stuff. We've got the mirrors and the curtains on. And it occurred to me afterwards, I ended the workshop, the focus group, and the CEO of the company said to me, I can't believe you were able to do that. And I said, what do you mean? She said, that was your work that they were beating up so badly. How were you able to separate yourself? And I said, I was fascinated by how much passion I caused them, that they weren't just upset. They were like ready to beat down the door. In fact, one person said, I don't know who came up with this. It's got to be the worst thing I've ever seen. We took that focus group. The company was very upset about it. I was really excited. I took the video and I dissected everything that they told us, and they gave me the map to move forward. I just had to take the time to look through it and go, okay, doesn't matter what Bob thinks. This is what this group thinks. And I think that's something that we tend not to be comfortable doing. We tend to think that if we allow others feedback into our world enough, it tarnishes the product. It tarnishes what we're doing. So this book I'm writing, I asked you and I asked John yesterday, over the last couple of days, I want you to read it before I print it, just to get your perspective. You're going to give me some comments, and I can take or leave them. I value them, I value your time, and I'll probably evaluate them very carefully. And it'll make for a better book. I know that. Doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. Doesn't mean that I'm, a silly author. It just means that I know the right people to bring into the mix to make it better than it would be if it was just Bob's view of the world. What do you think to all that, Tom?
Absolutely. Well, here's what I would say is that in all of those cases, an action was taken, right? That company could have just gone on and done whatever they were going to do with whatever you provided them. That was an option. You could just take your book and put it out there. That's an option. Either way, you took an action. You're going to get feedback, right? People are going to react. Whether you get it before you send it to the world or you get it once you send it to the world is just new knowledge, experience, and perspective, right? Which now allows you to figure out, okay, if you had sent it to the world, the company had sent that information to the world, they would have come back and been like, oh, all right, the world loves it, hates it, whatever. We've got new information, new knowledge. How does that change what's real? How does it influence it? Same thing with your book. You've taken the action to get feedback just from a smaller subset. Right. So while we'll have feedback, does that mean it's right? No, it just means it's what's real for us. You could still send it out in the world. That company could still use that. And maybe that focus group had the same perspective, but it was, and likely, different and unique from the main audience. That can happen. You poll 12 people in a room and you poll them, and they'll tell you this. All right, well, now when you send it out to 20,000 people, you're going to likely get different reactions. And so
I know it.
Well, and the beauty of it is, here's the thing, is that you have taken the action and you're moving forward. So often people get stuck and they just don't take the action. They're like, well, I need to get more information. Okay, at what point is more information too much? Not enough. Are you getting it from broad enough perspective or just one person? So I think that one of the key things is you took action and you got a response. Now you can take another action, which leads to another response.
Yep.
When we stop taking actions and we worry about, we're stuck, frustrated, overwhelmed, that's where the challenge comes in. That's, to me, why these laser solution sessions that we offer is so beneficial to people, because it allows them to not get stuck in, where are we at? Okay, in reality, you did a laser solution session for that company. It was a little longer, but it's like, okay, what, you're not 100% sure? Let's do a focus group. Great, we do the focus group. What's next? Take that information. How does it influence us? What's next? We do the next thing. You got your book. You wrote it. You took the next step, which is say, hey, a few of you, would you like to look at it? Great, look at it. You're going to get feedback. You're going to make the next step. It's when we stop taking those steps because we're worried that that's when the struggles come in.
I've got another comment from Kim. Staying in alignment with your own values is important, though. As you hear what prospects want, it doesn't necessarily mean we need to go there. And I think that's a really great perspective and insight, that, just because someone says you should do this thing, if that's not what your mission, what your values, what your beliefs, what you want to do, that doesn't mean you should do it. And it doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means at the moment, that's not the right answer. Doesn't mean it can't change. And I've certainly had things all the time that change. But, we've got to be open to the possibilities, but we've also got to be in control of what we're doing and what matters to us. So my one thing real quick would be just really thinking about what matters to you and where it aligns with the people you serve. Like really doing that chart and saying, hey, I value this and my clients value this. And this is where, because I think when you start to look at that and do that Venn diagram where they align, that to me is where opportunity exists. If you're trying to figure out who you talk to, when you realize that you could go from doing what you do with nonprofits to small businesses, that opened a huge door for you. You're talking to someone about doing some speaking because you now work with small businesses.
Right.
And it took you a while to adjust to that idea. It wasn't like you said, I remember when you brought it up to me and it was like, we had to go through a little bit. Tom, this is basically the same stuff. And that's also true, I think. It doesn't come like immediate. Someone doesn't give you the light bulb moment. You go, duh, I figured it all out. It's more like, oh, yeah, I could do that. Huh. Yeah, if I did that, that would change things a little bit. Huh. And you build from there, and it's constantly spinning. It's not huge leaps. That's the other thing about the laser solution sessions that I like, is that we're not trying to solve all the problems. It's hop on a call and let's deal with that one thing right now that's messing you up,
right?
That stopped you in your tracks. So Tom, with that, we should probably close and let people see that little promo on laser solution sessions, because we are running a deal right now, aren't we? Tell them about that deal, Tom.
Yes. So the deal is the opportunity. Bob and I are open some office hours to make those spaces available, because we know it's been a tough year. There's an opportunity for you. If you are stuck, and I'm sure they're going to fill up fast, you can sign up for a free laser solution session to give you a chance to get unstuck and ready to move forward into next year. If you are not yet a member of the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, that might be your next step, is be a part of our group, where we're having discussions like this all the time through comments, posts, questions, discussions about how do people who start to think and understand what's real for them are trying to figure out what's real for their audience. Join us in the Ring of Renegades. You can go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades. It's a private group. Just ask to join. Tell us why you're a renegade, and you can be a part of this ever-growing group of leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs. So,
well done, Tom. Bravo. And we should say, the laser solution sessions, we're not going to get you on a phone call and sit there and sell you on some incredible solution. We're actually going to help you solve a problem.
Right. Just how to help you move forward. So with that, we hope that we will see you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. If not, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time for the next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you soon.
As a business owner, entrepreneur, or leader, have you ever found yourself stuck? Overwhelmed with everything in your plate? At a crossroads and unsure of your next step? Or just trying to figure out where to go from here? Our Laser Solution Sessions are 20-minute focused calls to help you find clarity in your direction. Focus on the action that will provide you with the greatest return, and the next step to get you on your path to success. Invest in yourself and get back on track. Black Friday weekend